and welcome. Today we are taking a full look at the brand new Nerf Pro Sender, which is the second flywheel-powered Nerf Pro blaster. The blaster is semi-automatic, and it is claiming up to 150 feet per second. Now let's jump right in. Now included in the box, we of course have the blaster itself, the 15-round magazine. This is the same one that came with the Torrent, 30 of the pretty mediocre Nerf Pro darts, and the instructions. Unlike the Strife X, the Sender does not include a rechargeable battery. The blaster requires 8 AA's, and unlike the Maxim, this blaster does not have an easy rechargeable option. Rev-up time is pretty slow, especially when comparing the Sender to the Strife X. Now let's go over the blaster. Starting off, we have one rival style rail on top. We have the safety right here. In the forward position, you are safe. You cannot pull the rev trigger. And in the rear position, you are ready to go. Right up top, we do have the jam door. It is pretty easy to access and it gives you some space. Now right here we have our magazine, and this is our magazine release. While I like the placement of the magazine release, the actual tolerance there is not great. It is much too tight and definitely pretty annoying. Now, just like the Torrent, the blaster is not compatible with standard Talon compatible magazines. So this one from the Nexus Pro X will not work in the Sender, but it will work with the angled Talons, and it is still compatible with our standard half darts. Also, just like the Torrent, the stock is actually a back cap to an N-Strike stock attachment point, which I still think is a super cool feature, and it just looks incredibly clean. So you can take your favorite N-Strike compatible stock and adapt it to your liking. I love how low profile it is, and it just works really well. When you do have the included stock on here, the blaster is very compact. Not necessarily a bad thing, and if you don't like how this blaster feels, it's great that you can just extend it. The overall construction and the plastic quality are phenomenal. This feels like a really durable blaster. And the ergonomics are pretty good overall to me. My main gripe is that when you are holding this grip, at least the bottom of my hand bumps into this very squared edge. I don't think it's completely intolerable, but I could see it getting annoying after a few hours. The Sender is a semi-automatic flywheel blaster, so assuming you have darts loaded, you can simply hold down the rev trigger and pull the main trigger every time you want to fire a round. This blaster does feel very powerful, but firing the blaster does not feel like a refined experience. The rev trigger is kind of spongy, and the main trigger is very heavy. It's fairly awkward to use, especially when compared to the Mark III, the Maxim Pro, or even the Strife X. That combined with the very poor tolerance around the releasing of the magazine make the overall experience kind of annoying. But let's take this thing outside and put it over the chronograph. Alright, here we are outside with the Nerf Pro Sender. For this chronograph test, we will fire 6 of the included Nerf Pro darts, and then we're going to fire 6 of the Dart Zone Rubies. The box is claiming 150 feet per second. 144, 153, 154, 153, 164, 148, and 160. Whoops, actually that last one was a ruby, so we're going to discount that number and include it in the next average. But yeah, with the included darts, it definitely gets the box claim. Now to the rubies. We did already fire one, and that was 160. 164, 151, 153, 158, and 154. This is also a really good average. I'm again happy with that performance. The Sender has no problem reaching the box claim with the included darts and Dart Zone darts. Now let's fire some shots downrange. In this magazine, I have a mix of Nerf Pro darts and Dart Zone Rubies. That performance is actually pretty wild. This blaster does not have a consistent trajectory. The rubies were okay for the most part. We had quite a bit of left and right variance. I'm not sure how easy it would be to hit another player from more than 50 feet away. But the Nerf Pro darts were really terrible. If you did see that, we had wild accuracy with one even fishtailing and completely spinning out. So I'm gonna say this blaster is borderline unusable with the included darts and hardly acceptable with the Dart Zone rubies. That performance was really embarrassing. So much worse than what we got with the Strife X, and so far behind things like the Maxim. Really disappointing. So what are my final thoughts on the Nerf Pro Sender? Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to recommend the Sender. But first, what do I like about the blaster? I really love the overall design. It is very dart tag reminiscent. The sleekness and the varying textures are really awesome. I love the fact that you're still getting that extra end strike stock attachment point. It's hidden so nicely, and it's just a great feature to have. I love the bullpup nature of the blaster, and I love how compact it is. I also think that the build quality is fantastic, some of Nerf's best. But now to the bad. While the blaster does easily get the box claim, that really doesn't matter because the darts coming out do not go where you're pointing the blaster. Accuracy is wild, especially with the included darts. And my flywheels seem to be aligned, so I'm not sure exactly what's causing the issue. This is particularly sad coming right after the Strife X, which is one of the most accurate flywheel blasters stock in my experience. That thing is just incredible. But yeah, this thing's wild accuracy and the fishtailing and all that crazy stuff make it pretty much unusable in my book. I also understand this to an extent because everybody complained about how the Strife X was so expensive, but the fact that we're not getting a rechargeable battery and instead have to do the AA's, that makes the Sender inherently worse than most other flywheel blasters on the market. Even blasters like the Maxim Pro or Mark III have an easy way to hook up to a rechargeable, even though they can take AA's out of the box. In order to make the Sender rechargeable, you have to rewire the entire blaster. Not great, especially when this thing is in such a competitive space. I also have to say the tolerances on this blaster are very poor, particularly poor. The releasing of the magazine is just awful. It's super tight, and while I can live with a spongy rev trigger, the main trigger being so stiff is an immediate turn away. It's super clunky and uncomfortable. All that is really unfortunate because this blaster had me absolutely hyped and I was really looking forward to it. It turned out to have too many flaws. If they did like a version 2 of this blaster and fixed a lot of the issues, then I think I could probably recommend it. I still really like how this blaster looks and the overall design. It just comes down to the really bad trajectory, the inaccuracy there, the heavy and uncomfortable trigger pull, and the really poor tolerances. There are definitely better blasters to buy out there. If you are looking for a competitive pro-grade flywheel blaster at around that $40 to $50 range, I would recommend the Adventure Force / Dart Zone Maxim Pro. I will have my review on that blaster linked in the description. It is a far more refined blaster and a much better experience than the Nerf Pro Sender. However, if you do just really like the Sender for whatever reason or just want to give it a try, I will have the link in my description. Thank you very much for watching. I would love to hear your thoughts on the Nerf Pro Sender. Subscribe for more, have a good one, and happy blasting.